Have you ever felt like life keeps testing you, pushing you to your limits, draining your energy, and leaving you wondering if you have what it takes to keep going? It's not weakness, it's not failure. It's simply a sign that your emotional foundation needs to be strengthened. The truth is, emotional strength isn't built by avoiding pain, waiting for motivation, or pretending everything is fine. It's built in the small, deliberate actions you take every single day, in the way you respond when things don't go your way, in the mindset you choose when the pressure rises, and in the discipline you keep when no one is watching. The ancient Stoics knew this long before modern psychology confirmed it. They understood that real power comes from mastering your inner world, from learning to stay calm when chaos surrounds you, from controlling your reactions when emotions run high, and from refusing to let the outside world dictate your peace. In this episode, we're not just talking about feeling better. We're talking about becoming unshakable. I'll share with you 10 habits, grounded in timeless Stoic wisdom, that will train your mind, steady your emotions, and make you stronger than life's challenges. By the time we're done, you won't just know how to handle adversity, you'll know how to turn it into your greatest advantage. So, let's get started. 1. Start your day by identifying control. What's yours? What's not? Every morning, before you even step out the door, your mind is already at work. It's running through lists, expectations, fears, and possibilities. Your brain is asking, what will happen today? Who will say what? Will things go my way? And yet, if you stop and think about it, most of those questions are about things you cannot control. This is one of the great traps that keeps people stuck in frustration, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. They spend their energy wrestling with what is outside their reach, instead of mastering what is truly theirs to command. The Stoics understood this with absolute clarity. Epictetus taught that life can be divided into two realms: the things within our control and the things outside it. The things within our control include our thoughts, our actions, our values, our decisions, and how we choose to respond to the world. The things outside our control, everything else, the opinions of others, the past, the economy, the weather, even whether someone understands you or not. The problem is, most people live as if it's the other way around, obsessing over what they can't control while neglecting what they can. They let an argument ruin their entire day. They replay a conversation from yesterday as if it will somehow change the outcome. They plan their mood around someone else's behavior. The result? They give away their emotional power without even realizing it. But when you flip this mindset, everything changes. Imagine waking up tomorrow and before looking at your phone, before opening your email, before letting the world in, you pause. You ask yourself, what do I control today? Maybe it's the effort you put into your work. Maybe it's the food you choose to eat. Maybe it's the patience you choose to show when someone tests your limits. By naming these things, you create a mental filter. The moment something outside that list tries to pull you in, you know it's not worth your energy. This is not passive acceptance. This is strategic focus. It's like a general in battle knowing exactly where to deploy his troops. You stop fighting losing battles and start investing everything into the ones you can win. Think about the difference this makes. Let's say you have a big meeting today. You can't control whether people like your ideas, but you can control how well you prepare, how clearly you speak, and how you carry yourself. Or maybe you're dealing with a personal challenge. You can't control the actions of others, but you can control your boundaries, your self-respect, and your next step forward. When you live this way, you stop being tossed around by the world's chaos. Instead, you become anchored, steady, focused, and hard to shake. People notice this. They feel you're calm in situations where others are panicking. They see that you're not emotionally enslaved to things you can't change. And in a world addicted to outrage and distraction, that kind of control is magnetic. This is why the Stoics called it true freedom, because as long as you're controlled by external forces, you're not really free. But the moment you master your focus, you reclaim your power. Here's your challenge. Tomorrow morning, before the noise of the world reaches you, take a moment to write down 3 things you can control today. Keep that list in your pocket or in your phone. Look at it whenever stress tries to creep in. Let it remind you that your energy is precious, and you decide where it goes. Do this every day, and over time you'll notice a shift. Problems won't disappear, but they'll lose their ability to dominate you. Disappointments will still come, but they won't crush you. You'll realize that while the world is unpredictable, your response is always yours. And that's where real strength begins. 2. Practice the inner pause before reacting to emotions. Choose your response. Even if you master the art of focusing only on what you can control, there's another trap that can steal your power in seconds: your own emotions. We've all been there. You're in a conversation. Someone says something sharp, unfair, or outright disrespectful. Before you can think, your voice rises, your words come out harder than you intended, and in an instant, the damage is done. You didn't choose that reaction, it chose you. This is where the Stoics gave us one of the most powerful tools for emotional strength: the inner pause. It's the space, sometimes only a few seconds long, between what happens to you and how you choose to respond. And in that space lies your freedom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That power begins with not letting your first emotional impulse run the show. Anger, frustration, fear, they're not bad in themselves. They're signals. But when you let them grab the wheel, they can drive you straight into decisions and words you'll regret. The inner pause is the act of taking back the driver's seat. It's telling your emotions, "I hear you, but I decide what happens next." It's not suppression. You're not burying your feelings. You're creating enough space to decide the most effective, dignified, and strategic response. Think about how this changes the outcome in real life. A colleague criticizes your idea in a meeting. Your first impulse might be to defend yourself aggressively or shut down completely. But if you pause, even for a deep breath, you give your rational mind time to step in. You might decide to ask a clarifying question instead of reacting defensively, or calmly present your reasoning instead of escalating tension. That one pause could mean the difference between earning respect and losing it. The same applies outside work. In a relationship, a heated argument can spiral out of control when both people fire back without thinking. But if one person pauses, breathes, and chooses their words carefully, they can shift the entire tone of the conversation. Instead of adding fuel to the fire, they lower the flames. This is not weakness, it's discipline. Anyone can lash out in anger. It takes true strength to stay composed when provoked. The Stoics saw this as mastery over oneself, the highest form of victory. Epictetus reminded his students that it's not events themselves that harm us, but our judgments about them. The pause gives you the power to adjust those judgments before they control you. Here's how you can train it. Notice the signal. When your heart rate rises, your jaw tightens, or your thoughts start racing, that's your body telling you it's time to pause. Breathe. Just 1 or 2 deep breaths can interrupt the emotional surge and give your mind space. Ask a question. What's the best outcome here? Or, will my next words make this better or worse? Choose, don't react. Speak or act only when your response aligns with your values, not just your impulses. This habit will feel unnatural at first, especially if you're used to reacting instantly, but over time, the pause becomes your default. You'll find that people respect you more because you're not easily rattled. You'll notice that you walk away from situations with your dignity intact. And most importantly, you'll realize you're not at the mercy of your moods. The pause is a form of power that can't be taken from you. No one can force you to react before you're ready. No one can decide your tone, your words, or your actions except you. When you own that power, your relationships improve, your reputation grows, and your emotional resilience strengthens. So next time you feel the heat rising inside you, remember, you don't have to answer right away. You don't have to act immediately. The pause is your shield. Use it, and you'll discover that the strongest person in the room is not the one who shouts the loudest. It's the one who stays in control when everyone else loses theirs. Third, be honest with yourself. Own your truth without shame. You can master control over your focus. You can train yourself to pause before reacting, but none of it will mean much if the person you're dealing with, yourself, is lying to you. And here's the truth most people don't want to face. Self-deception is the quiet killer of emotional strength. It's easy to call out dishonesty in others, but it's much harder to recognize when we are the ones hiding the truth. Sometimes we bury it under excuses. I'm too busy. It's not the right time. That's just how I am. Other times we wrap it in false optimism, telling ourselves things are fine when deep down we know they're not. We create these illusions because the truth can be uncomfortable. But the Stoics knew that facing reality, even when it hurts, is the foundation of freedom. Epictetus put it simply, know first who you are and then adorn yourself accordingly. You can't grow if you're building on lies. You can't become stronger if you're unwilling to see the cracks in your own armor. Being honest with yourself means looking directly at the parts of your life that aren't working and admitting your role in them. Maybe you've been stuck in a job that drains you because you're afraid to take the risk of change. Maybe you've been repeating the same destructive patterns in relationships because it's easier than breaking them. Maybe you've been telling yourself you're working on it, when in reality you've been avoiding it. Honesty doesn't mean beating yourself up. It's not self-criticism, it's self-clarity. You acknowledge the truth without adding shame to it. You look at yourself with the same directness you would want from a trusted friend. Someone who won't lie to spare your feelings, but also won't judge you for being imperfect. The power of this habit is that once you face the truth, you can act on it. Self-deception traps you because you can't fix what you refuse to see. But when you strip away the stories, excuses, and illusions, you give yourself a clear view of the battlefield. You see where the weaknesses are, and you can start strengthening them. Think about a time you finally admitted something to yourself after avoiding it for too long. Maybe you realized you were in the wrong relationship. Maybe you admitted a habit was harming you more than helping you. At first, it probably stung, but after the sting, there was relief, because now you knew what you were dealing with. You could stop pretending. You could start moving forward. The Stoics lived in constant self-examination. Marcus Aurelius used his journal not to impress anyone, but to speak truth to himself, to admit where he fell short, where his discipline wavered, where his actions didn't match his values. He knew that self-awareness without action was pointless, but action without self-awareness was dangerous. So how do you practice this habit? Create moments of reflection. Set aside a few minutes daily to ask yourself hard questions. Where am I lying to myself? What truth am I avoiding? Listen to your discomfort. Often the things you avoid thinking about are exactly the truths you need to face. Remove judgment. Treat the truth as data, not as a verdict on your worth. Commit to small corrections. Once you face the truth, take one concrete step to address it. When you make honesty with yourself a daily habit, you stop being controlled by denial. You become grounded in reality, which makes your actions more precise, your decisions more confident, and your emotional state more stable. Because here's the thing, life will test you no matter what. But if you're already lying to yourself, you'll enter those tests unprepared. When you own your truth, without shame, you walk into every situation knowing exactly who you are and what you stand for. And that kind of self-knowledge is unshakable. 4. Reflect on daily events. Carry a mirror for your life. Most people live their days like they're rushing through a crowded street, never pausing, never looking back, always reacting to the next thing in front of them. And then they wonder why they feel lost, why their mistakes repeat themselves, why lessons never seem to stick. The answer is simple. They are moving through life without a mirror. A mirror in this context isn't about vanity, it's about reflection, the deliberate act of looking back on what happened, how you acted, and what it taught you. The Stoics practiced this religiously. Seneca wrote that each night before bed he would review his entire day, almost as if he were a judge in his own trial, not to punish himself, but to understand himself, to see where he lived according to his values and where he fell short. The modern world doesn't encourage this. We are constantly distracted, our attention pulled in 100 directions. It's easy to get through an entire week without really thinking about how we lived it. And that's dangerous, because without reflection, we repeat our mistakes by default. We lose the ability to connect our actions with their consequences. Reflection is where experience becomes wisdom. Without it, life is just a blur of events. But when you stop to analyze your day, even for a few minutes, you give meaning to what happened. You start noticing patterns, the situations that trigger your worst reactions, the people who lift you up versus the ones who drain you, the decisions that bring peace versus the ones that bring regret. Here's the problem. Most people think they'll reflect later, after things calm down, after the weekend, after the crisis is over. But later rarely comes. You have to build it into your day like brushing your teeth or eating a meal. If you don't, life will pass by and you'll be no wiser than you were a year ago. A simple way to start is with 3 nightly questions. What went well today? This builds gratitude and helps you see progress, even if small. What could I have done better? This isn't self-criticism, it's strategy for improvement. What will I do differently tomorrow? This turns reflection into action. Don't underestimate how powerful this is. If you answer these questions every night for a year, you'll naturally start making better choices without even realizing it. You'll avoid repeating the same mistakes because you'll be aware of them. You'll develop a sharper instinct for what serves you and what doesn't. The Stoics understood that the unexamined day leads to an unexamined life. And an unexamined life is one where you're not really in control, you're just reacting. Reflection gives you the ability to live on purpose. It slows you down enough to see the truth about yourself and your world. Think about how a craftsman improves his work. He doesn't just keep hammering away and hope for better results. He stops, looks at what he's done, measures it against the standard, and adjusts. Without that pause, his craft would never evolve. Your life is no different. When you make reflection a habit, you become your own guide. You no longer have to wait for life to slap you awake. You catch the small errors before they become big ones. You notice the quiet wins before they fade from memory. And over time, your days stop feeling like a blur. They start feeling like a deliberate path. This is your mirror. Carry it every day. Use it not to judge yourself harshly, but to see yourself clearly. Because when you see yourself clearly, you can shape yourself intentionally. And when you shape yourself intentionally, you stop drifting. You start directing. 5. Develop emotional resilience. Bend without breaking. Life will hit you. Not once, not twice, but over and over. Sometimes in small, annoying ways, and sometimes in ways that feel like they could crush you. Most people think strength is about refusing to bend under pressure, about standing so firm that nothing moves you. But true resilience isn't about being rigid. It's about being able to bend without breaking. A tree that refuses to bend in the wind will eventually snap, but a tree that sways, that adapts to the direction of the storm, will survive. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They knew that life is unpredictable and often unfair, and that the real test is not whether you can avoid hardship, you can't, but whether you can move with it without losing yourself. Emotional resilience is the ability to feel the full weight of what's happening without letting it crush your spirit. It's not denial. You still acknowledge the pain, the setback, the loss, but you don't allow it to define you. You remain centered in who you are, even when everything around you feels unstable. The problem is that most people expect life to be calm before they decide to be calm. They think, I'll be at peace once this is over, once things settle. But things rarely settle. If you wait for the world to be stable before you build stability within yourself, you'll wait forever. Resilience means creating your own inner stability, no matter what's happening outside. So how do you build this? First, you need to stop fighting the fact that pain and difficulty exist. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Much of our breaking point comes not from the actual problem, but from our resistance to it. When something hard happens, we waste energy wishing it didn't, replaying it, resenting it, resisting it. That's energy we could use to adapt, to respond, to move forward. Second, you must separate what is within your control from what isn't. This is the Stoic foundation. The moment you put your mental focus on what you can do, not on what you wish you could change, you reclaim your power. You may not control the storm, but you can control the way you set your sails. Third, train your emotional endurance in small moments before the big ones arrive. People think resilience comes from surviving a huge crisis, but it's built in everyday life. In how you respond to small frustrations, in how you handle delays, in how you talk to yourself when you fail. Every time you choose composure over panic, you strengthen the muscle. And finally, remember that resilience is not just about surviving, it's about growing. The Stoics believed adversity was not only inevitable, but essential. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the obstacle is not just something to get through, it's the very thing that makes you stronger. Think of metal being tempered in fire. If it avoided the heat, it would remain weak and brittle. It's the heat that transforms it. The same is true for you. You don't become unshakable by avoiding difficulty. You become unshakable by allowing difficulty to shape you, without letting it break you. So when life's wind starts to howl, don't brace yourself so tightly that you shatter. Bend with it, adapt to it. Trust that you can sway and still stand tall. That's real strength, not the absence of movement, but the presence of endurance. When you can bend without breaking, you become like that rooted tree in the storm. You may sway, you may lose a few leaves, but when the wind passes, you're still standing, and your roots are deeper than before. 6. Control your impulse to react, the pause that protects you. One of the fastest ways to lose your power is to give an instant reaction to everything that triggers you. It could be someone's rude comment, a frustrating delay, a piece of bad news, or even a misunderstanding. Most people live in constant reaction mode, allowing every external event to pull the strings of their emotions. They're like a puppet. Someone tugs at them and they move. But the moment you realize you can insert a pause between what happens and how you respond, you start reclaiming control over your life. The Stoics saw this as the essence of self-mastery. Epictetus famously taught that it's not events that disturb us, but our opinions about them. That space between the event and your interpretation of it, that's your power. The problem is, most people don't recognize that space. They collapse the event and the reaction into one instant, thinking they're the same, but they're not. Imagine you're holding a cup of hot coffee. Someone bumps into you and the coffee spills. It wasn't the bump that made you spill, it was the coffee inside the cup. Likewise, when life bumps into you, what spills out is whatever you've been carrying inside. If it's anger, anger will pour out. If it's patience, patience will. The pause gives you the chance to decide what you're going to carry, and therefore what's going to spill. Why is this so hard? Because reacting feels natural. Our brain is wired for quick responses, fight, flight, or freeze. In ancient times, that wiring kept us alive. But in modern life, most threats aren't physical. They're emotional. And reacting instantly to emotional triggers often creates more damage than the trigger itself. When you react without pause, you hand over control to the situation or the person who triggered you. You're letting them decide your emotional state. But when you pause, even for a breath, you step back into the driver's seat. That pause can be as short as counting to 3 or as long as taking a day before replying. The length doesn't matter. The act of pausing does. Here's the power of the pause. In that space, you can ask yourself, what outcome do I want? This is the question that shifts everything. Instead of reacting to satisfy your ego in the moment, you respond in a way that serves your bigger goal. Maybe your goal is to maintain peace. Maybe it's to keep a relationship intact. Maybe it's to avoid saying something you'll regret. Whatever it is, you can only act in alignment with it if you pause long enough to think. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminded himself daily, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That's the Stoic pause, not suppression, not avoidance, but conscious redirection. Pausing also protects you from the trap of overreaction. Think about how many regrets in your life came from words you wish you hadn't said, messages you wish you hadn't sent, or actions you wish you could take back. Now imagine if you had given yourself even 30 seconds to breathe before acting. How different would the outcome have been? The pause is not weakness, it's strategic strength. It shows that you're not a slave to your emotions, that you can choose clarity over chaos. In a world where everyone is quick to react, the person who can pause stands out as calm, collected, and unshakable. Start practicing in small ways. When someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of honking and shouting, pause and remind yourself, it's not worth your peace. When you receive a message that upsets you, pause before typing a response. When a co-worker annoys you, Pause and decide whether the reaction you're about to give aligns with who you want to be. Over time, this habit rewires your brain. You'll notice that life's triggers lose their grip on you. You're no longer being yanked around by every situation. You become deliberate, intentional, and that is the mark of a truly strong mind. The pause won't stop challenges from coming, but it will ensure that you meet them on your terms, not theirs. And in that moment of stillness, you'll find not just control, but freedom. Seventh, set boundaries without guilt. Protect your energy like it's gold. Your time, focus, and energy are the most valuable currencies you will ever own. Yet too many people spend them recklessly, giving them away to anyone who asks, and sometimes to those who don't even ask, but take without hesitation. The truth is, every yes you give without thought is a no to something that truly matters. And every time you let guilt decide your boundaries, you trade long-term peace for short-term approval. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates. They're not about shutting people out completely, but about deciding who and what gets to enter your mental, emotional, and physical space. The Stoics understood this intuitively. They believed that the soul must be protected from chaos and distraction in the same way the body is protected from harm. If you wouldn't hand your house keys to a stranger, why would you hand your mental clarity to anyone who demands your attention? The problem is that we're conditioned to see boundaries as selfish. From childhood, many of us were taught to be agreeable, to accommodate, to avoid conflict. Saying no feels like letting someone down. And for people who value relationships, the idea of disappointing others can be deeply uncomfortable. But here's the reality. Without boundaries, you're not helping people. You're enabling them to keep taking without accountability. And you're slowly depleting yourself in the process. Think of your life like a garden. The flowers and plants represent your goals, your health, your happiness. Boundaries are the fences that keep out the weeds and pests. Without them, the garden gets overrun, not because the weeds are evil, but because they simply grow where there's open space. Life is the same. Without boundaries, other people's demands, problems, and opinions creep into every corner of your mind until there's no room left for your own growth. Setting boundaries starts with clarity. You need to know what matters most to you, your priorities, your values, your limits. Once you have that clarity, boundaries are simply the natural lines that protect them. For example, if health is a priority, you might set a boundary about your sleep schedule. If focus is a priority, you might limit how often you check messages during the day. If self-respect is a priority, you might refuse to engage in conversations that are consistently disrespectful. The guilt that often comes with boundaries is a sign that you care, but it's also a sign that you've been trained to put others before yourself in every situation. Here's the truth you need to remember. People who benefit from you having no boundaries will be the ones most upset when you set them. That discomfort isn't proof that you're wrong. It's proof that the boundary is working. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do." Boundaries are how you live that philosophy. They allow you to focus on your own actions and responsibilities instead of being dragged into the noise of everyone else's world. When you set boundaries without guilt, you send a message to yourself and to others that your life has value. You teach people how to treat you, and you teach yourself that your needs are worth honoring. Over time, you'll notice something powerful. The right people will respect your boundaries, and the wrong people will remove themselves. Either way, you win. Start small. Say no to a request that drains you. Turn off notifications after a certain hour. Protect your mornings for deep work or self-care. Every boundary you set is like reclaiming a piece of land that belongs to you. And the more you protect that land, the more it will flourish. Remember this: you are not here to be available to everyone at all times. You are here to live a life of purpose, and purpose requires energy. Protect that energy like it's gold, because it is. 8. Accept discomfort as a path to strength. Stop chasing the easy way. We live in a world obsessed with comfort, climate control, instant meals, entertainment on demand, same-day delivery. Life is designed to minimize friction. But here's the paradox: the more comfortable you make yourself, the weaker you become. Muscles don't grow without resistance, and neither does character. If you want to be emotionally strong, you need to stop treating discomfort like an enemy and start seeing it as the forge where resilience is built. The Stoics knew this well. Seneca often spoke of voluntary discomfort, deliberately choosing situations that test you so that you're never at the mercy of circumstances. Why? Because life will eventually strip away your comfort, whether you like it or not. Illness, loss, change, rejection. These are not possibilities, they're inevitabilities. And if you've built your whole identity around ease, you'll collapse the moment hardship arrives. Discomfort is not punishment, it's training. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to prove to yourself that you can endure more than you thought possible. When you deliberately step into discomfort, whether it's waking up early, speaking the truth when silence would be easier, or taking on a task you're afraid of, you're telling yourself, I am capable, I am stronger than my impulses. The problem is that our instincts tell us to avoid pain. This made sense thousands of years ago when discomfort often meant danger. But in the modern world, avoiding discomfort usually means avoiding growth. The cold shower that shocks your system, the workout that leaves your muscles burning, the honest conversation that makes your voice shake. These moments aren't harming you, they're expanding your limits. Think about the people you admire most. They are not the ones who took the easy road. They are the ones who walked into storms, faced fear, and endured the weight of challenge without breaking. Their strength wasn't a gift. It was a result of choosing the harder path when it mattered. Embracing discomfort also changes your relationship with fear. Fear thrives in the unknown, but the more you step into challenging situations, the more familiar they become. Public speaking, for example, feels terrifying until you've done it dozens of times. Running a business feels overwhelming until you've weathered the ups and downs. Pain, like any other experience, loses its power when you face it head-on. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminded his students that we should not wish for events to happen as we want them to, but wish for them to happen exactly as they do, and embrace them fully. This mindset transforms discomfort from something to escape into something to work with. Instead of thinking, why is this happening to me? You begin to think, what is this here to teach me? You don't have to throw yourself into chaos to build strength. Start with small acts of intentional discomfort. Skip the elevator and take the stairs. Have the conversation you've been avoiding. Try something new that makes you feel uncertain. Each time you do, you're building your tolerance for life's inevitable storms. The key is to stop chasing the easy way as your default. Easy is seductive because it feels good now, but it rarely leads anywhere worth going. Hard, on the other hand, shapes you. It strips away weakness, exposes your raw capacity, and leaves you with something far more valuable than comfort: confidence. So the next time you feel the pull toward ease, pause. Ask yourself, will this choice make me stronger or softer? Choose the one that builds you, not the one that spares you a temporary discomfort. Remember, Life's most valuable rewards are often found just beyond the edge of comfort. When you can look discomfort in the eye and walk toward it instead of away, you stop living at the mercy of life's changes. You become someone who bends but never breaks. And that's the kind of strength no amount of comfort can ever give you. Ninth, stop taking things personally. Master emotional detachment. One of the fastest ways to drain your energy, lose your focus, and give away your power is to take everything personally. Every offhand comment, every delayed reply, every cold glance. If you interpret these as attacks on your worth, you will live in constant emotional turbulence. The truth is, most of what people say or do has very little to do with you and everything to do with them, their mood, their history, their struggles, their perspective. The Stoics taught that your peace should not be held hostage by the behavior of others. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When you take things personally, you hand over that power. You allow strangers, critics, even loved ones to decide how you feel in a given moment. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop bleeding for things that don't deserve your blood. Think about how much mental space is wasted replaying conversations in your head. You analyze every word, tone, and gesture, searching for hidden meaning. This hyperfocus is exhausting and, more often than not, wrong. People are carrying their own battles. Sometimes they're short with you because they're stressed, not because you've done anything wrong. Sometimes they forget you because they're overwhelmed, not because you don't matter. The more you learn to detach, the more you see these moments for what they are, passing waves in the ocean of life. You don't dive into every wave and fight it. You learn to let it pass while you keep moving forward. Emotional detachment is the art of not tying your self-worth to the unpredictable winds of other people's moods. Practicing this begins with self-awareness. The next time you feel offended, pause and ask, "Is this about me or about them?" In most cases, you'll realize it's not personal. It's simply the other person's reality spilling over into yours. And you can choose whether to absorb it or let it roll off. Another key step is to stop assuming negative intent. Our brains are wired to protect us from harm, so we often default to suspicion. But suspicion creates enemies where there are none. What if instead you assumed neutral or even positive intent until proven otherwise? Imagine how much lighter your life would feel if you stopped jumping to the conclusion that people are against you. Detachment also requires building a strong internal foundation. When you know who you are and what you stand for, other people's opinions lose their grip on you. Their words may still reach your ears, but they won't pierce your heart. You become like a mountain. The wind can howl, but it cannot move you. One practical way to train this is by consciously exposing yourself to situations where you might be judged or misunderstood, and then refusing to defend yourself. Let people think what they want. Let them misunderstand you. When you practice not correcting every false impression, you free yourself from the exhausting need for approval. The great power of emotional detachment is that it allows you to focus on what truly matters. Instead of being pulled into drama, you can invest your time and energy into your values, your goals, your growth. You're no longer a leaf blown around by every gust of opinion. You're the tree with roots deep enough to withstand storms. So stop letting every comment, every look, every silence take up residence in your mind. Free yourself from the burden of over-interpretation. Learn to watch the world with a calm, steady gaze, unshaken by its noise. When you master emotional detachment, you don't just protect your peace, you multiply your power. Because when you're no longer controlled by every passing opinion, you're finally free to live according to your own. 10. Never stop learning. Feed your mind every day. Your mind is your greatest asset. It shapes your perception, drives your decisions, and determines the quality of your life. Yet many people stop actively feeding their minds after school or college, as if learning were a phase instead of a lifelong responsibility. This is one of the biggest mistakes you can make, because the world is constantly changing, and if you're not growing, you're falling behind. The Stoics understood this well. They believed that wisdom is not a destination, but a daily practice. Seneca once said, "As long as you live, keep learning how to live." This wasn't poetic filler. It was a call to treat knowledge as essential to survival, just like food and water. Your body needs fuel to function, and so does your mind. Without a steady diet of new ideas, your thinking becomes stale, your perspective narrow, and your ability to adapt weakens. Learning every day isn't about collecting random facts or impressing others with trivia. It's about sharpening your ability to think clearly, solve problems, and make better decisions. It's about building mental resilience so that when life throws challenges your way, you have the intellectual tools to respond instead of react. In today's world, information is everywhere, yet wisdom is rare. That's because most people consume passively. They scroll, they watch, they listen, but they don't engage. True learning requires intentionality. It means seeking out high-quality sources, questioning what you hear, and connecting it to your own life. It means reading books that challenge your worldview, listening to thinkers who inspire deeper reflection, and applying what you learn in small, consistent steps. Imagine your mind as a garden. If you neglect it, weeds of misinformation, shallow thinking, and mental laziness will grow. But if you plant seeds of truth, insight, and skill, and water them daily with practice and reflection, you'll cultivate a mind capable of extraordinary clarity and strength. The beauty of daily learning is that it compounds over time. 10 minutes a day may not seem like much, but over a year, that's over 60 hours of focused improvement. You can master new skills, understand complex topics, and expand your mental range in ways that will surprise even you. The key is consistency, making learning as natural and non-negotiable as brushing your teeth. And here's the truth: the moment you think you know enough is the moment you stop growing. Humility is the fuel for lifelong learning. Even the wisest people in history saw themselves as students. Socrates famously declared that his wisdom lay in knowing that he knew nothing. That mindset keeps you curious, open, and hungry for growth. If you want to live a richer life, feed your mind with substance every day. Read a few pages of a great book before bed. Listen to an educational podcast during your commute. Watch a lecture instead of mindless entertainment. Learn from the experiences of those who've walked the path before you, not to copy them, but to stand on their shoulders and see farther. Knowledge doesn't just make you smarter, it makes you stronger. It sharpens your awareness, deepens your understanding of people, and equips you to handle complexity with calm. It allows you to see opportunities others miss and to navigate challenges with creativity instead of fear. So commit to being a lifelong learner, not because it's trendy or impressive, but because your mind is the command center of your life. Protect it, challenge it, and feed it daily. In a world that changes faster than ever, the ability to keep learning is not just a skill, it's survival. Never stop being a student. The moment you stop feeding your mind is the moment you start starving your potential. We've walked through 10 habits that can transform your emotional strength, not in theory, but in the real, everyday battles of life. These aren't abstract ideas to store in the back of your mind. They're practical, living principles meant to be acted upon daily. Because emotional strength isn't something you magically wake up with. It's built, piece by piece, through the choices you make and the discipline you uphold. You've seen how guarding your mind, mastering your reactions, and choosing reason over impulse can change the way you face the world. You've learned the importance of holding your own standards, embracing discomfort as a teacher, and creating boundaries that protect your peace. You've discovered how much power comes from focusing on what you can control, letting go of what you can't, and feeding your mind with knowledge that shapes you into someone wiser, calmer, and unshakable. But here's the truth. Knowing these habits is useless if you don't live them. Emotional strength is like a muscle. It weakens without use, but grows stronger with consistent training. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to practice. Every moment you're tested is a chance to choose growth over comfort. And every day you wake up is a fresh start to build the kind of resilience most people only dream about. So ask yourself, will you let your emotions run your life, or will you master them? Will you allow the world to push you around, or will you stand firm in who you are? The choice is yours, and it's made not once, but every single day. If you want to live with true freedom, to walk through chaos with calm, and to meet life's storms with steady eyes, then don't just listen to this message, live it. Start today. Start now. Take one habit and put it into action before the day ends, because the longer you wait, the weaker your resolve becomes. Emotional strength isn't about never feeling pain or fear. It's about knowing that no matter what comes, you will endure, you will adapt, and you will rise. And remember, you are not here to simply survive life. You are here to master it.